Well, Donald Trump is back at it again. One of the first things the attorneys for Donald Trump are expected to do is try to move the trial for Donald Trump in this indictment that we're expecting to be unsealed on Tuesday to Staten Island. Now, there's an obvious reason for this, and it is because Staten Island tends to lean Republican. In fact, if you zoom in onto New York and you look at Staten Island specifically, which is kind of interesting because most of the properties that Trump owns are actually in Manhattan, not Staten Island. But anyway, if you zoom in and look at Staten Island, you'll find that about 57% of the voting base is Republican. Exactly 56.9% of people voted for Trump in 2020 in Staten Island. 42% voted Democratic. Now, this is a clear difference because that means Staten Island leans conservative. Well, guess which direction New York City leans? It should be obvious. It leans left. But how left does it lean? Well, in 2020, Joe Biden got 76% of the vote in Manhattan. Donald Trump only got 23% of the vote in Manhattan. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won 79% compared to Trump's just 18%. So he actually improved his overall voting base by 2020, but still ended up losing by a significant margin in New York City. Now, we do expect some outcomes of this. First of all, for moving this case to Staten Island, we think there's probably a next to 0% chance that the case will actually be moved to Staten Island. It doesn't seem like there would be a reason for moving it, especially since Donald Trump's most of his connections are to Manhattan, and some could allege that the actual crime occurred in the district of Manhattan, perhaps while Donald Trump was residing at Trump Tower. TBD. But what we know is that we expect the indictment against Donald Trump with potentially as many as 32 different charges to be unsealed against Donald Trump on Tuesday. Of course, many of these charges are likely to weigh evidence on these hush money payments potentially paid or not paid to Stormy Daniels and the litigation around that. Now, Donald Trump, at least according to this, it was actually a pretty good piece, and we know the New York Times does not like Trump, and we know Donald Trump rags on the New York Times all the time. But just for the sake of naming sources, this morning the New York Times had a cover page article, and they were talking about how Donald Trump has this tactic of basically delay everything as much as possible. And really, that's where I'm going to leave that piece because I don't want to go so deep into that one. What I think is very interesting about that is Donald Trump's legal strategy is, hey, look, sue all you want. But what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to use that lawsuit as ammunition for my fundraising, which is actually, to some extent, is quite brilliant. I mean, if you have very politically divisive lawsuits against you, why not just delay every potential progression of those lawsuits? And everything you could do at every point in turn, try to get more media coverage to it. I mean, think about it this way. I just covered Donald Trump potentially wanting to motion to move his lawsuit to Staten Island. Obviously, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. But you know what's really interesting is it's another thing that gets people talking about Donald Trump. And it's brilliant. This is sort of the principle, which is outlined in some of his books, including Art of the Deal, which technically he co-authored. But there's this concept. I don't think he uses this particular phrase. It's been a while since I've looked at these. But there's this concept of chaos theory, especially in litigation. And it really is, how much can you do to just make the other side's life a living hell? And you pepper them from every angle possible. And this is exactly what happens when you poke Donald Trump to some extent. Look, you poke Donald Trump with the threat of this indictment happening. What happens? Donald Trump comes out and turns it into a massive political rallying cry, ends up getting Congress involved, sending letters to the district attorney, to which now the district attorney has to basically take time from what they're doing and actually respond to all of this, which Congress, obviously, at least the three representatives who put this letter together, are like, well, I mean, we have the right to oversight. This is part of your duty anyway. Don't tell us you're wasting time responding to us. You are obligated to respond to us. Okay, fine. But the point is, It's brilliant. I mean, now you've got the biggest security possible around the district attorney's office. The New York Police Department is expecting to shut down most of the streets around where this indictment and the arraignment will be held, as well as the booking process. We do not expect Donald Trump to be in handcuffs. Honestly, from a publicity point of view, it'd probably look a lot like closed streets, some angry people outside of the closed streets. Donald Trump almost like going to a doctor's office, like checking in and checking back out. And so I kind of think the arraignment on Tuesday will probably be a relative nothing burger, because it'll be, here comes Donald Trump's motorcade. Then he walks into a building, and an hour later he walks out. There's no jail, no handcuffs. It's almost going to be like a business appointment. But the chaos that Donald Trump creates around the district attorney's office is his playbook. That's exactly the playbook. Is how can we distract you in every way? How can we politically rail, which he's already doing, on the judge, on the district attorney, on everybody involved? How can we get people to hate those people? How can we get people to basically egg those people's houses or cost them? And how can we increase law enforcement presence in the area, and then use all of this as a fundraising tactic? Again, I don't actually think Donald Trump thinks there's a chance in hell this case is actually going to get moved to Staten Island. But what does it do? Is it says, hey, please move the case to Staten Island. Now everybody covers it. Oh my gosh, Donald Trump is trying to get the case moved to Staten Island. And people look at Staten Island and go, oh, Staten Island's so conservative. Wow, Manhattan really is liberal. Wow, 76% Biden, 79% Hillary. Damn, is this going to be a fair trial? You see what like he's doing? Like literally, it's. I mean, I always try to be neutral, but I can't help but look at some of the pure brilliance, dare I say, sometimes of these moves, because really, by suggesting, hey, let's move it to Staten Island, he's really highlighting to the world how liberal New York City actually is. And in doing that, he can basically say, look, hey, Republicans, if you want me to have a chance in this election, you're going to have to send some more dollar hollers over, because this is going to be a hard fight. You can't blame it. It's a brilliant strategy. And every day he pulls off something like this. It's a fantastic way of his campaign getting more attention and more donations coming his way. So, very interestingly, on Tuesday, again, we do expect those streets to be closed around where the arraignment is to be held. Tuesday, tentatively, Donald Trump is expected to check in around 2 p.m. And I understand that some of this, it makes people frustrated. They don't like hearing about politics or Trump, but it's very, very important, because the economy responds to what happens in politics. Remember that Goldman Sachs believes the Inflation Reduction Act, rather than being deficit negative, is actually probably going to expand the deficit substantially more than expected. The spending of the Inflation Reduction Act is likely to be 3 times as great, and the actual deficit reduction portions are actually likely to be smaller than expected, again, via Goldman Sachs. And this shows you just really an Inflation Reduction Act is really likely going to end up being inflationary, as stimulus checks are essentially being delivered to the energy sector. And then you've got the $80 billion CHIPS Act, which is probably also likely to cost maybe twice or 3 times as much, via the similar principles, cost overruns for manufacturing plants being built or whatever, and then basically companies begging the government for more money, and they're getting it. So politics really does matter when it comes to finances and where we want to invest. This is why I think chips and energy stocks have substantial pricing power right now. But anyway, all of this Donald Trump entertainment, dare I say, should probably encourage you to get life insurance. Get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes. It's super easy to do. You just go to metkevin.com/life, and you will go from not having life insurance to having life insurance. Literally, before you're even done watching this video, you could probably be done signing up for it, and then you could tell your family and everyone, hey, look, finally got it. I finally did it. I finally checked it off the list. Of course, this video is brought to you by StreamYard. So shout out to StreamYard. Thank you so much to them. metkevin.com/StreamYard. And check out those programs on building your wealth. Link down below. StreamYard and the insurance, of course, a paid promotion. So with that said, look, obviously Tuesday is going to be, I think there's an expectation that Tuesday is going to be very entertaining. but I'm not holding expectations out that it is going to be vastly entertaining. That we're going to see massive protests. That we're somehow going to see some form of hustle or some sort of like, how should I say, tussle, I guess is the word I was looking for, between Donald Trump and law enforcement. I really think it'll be like checking in for a doctor's appointment. It'll be actually kind of boring. The most important issue that'll come out on Tuesday will be what are the actual charges and potentially the evidence. So that gives us an update on what's going on with Donnie T.